Hello and welcome to Salty About Health. My name is Dalaney Algier, and I'm here with my mom and co-host, Mary. So, Mom, why are we salty about health?
Good question. It's because both of us have had struggles, some more serious than others, and no one showed us simple ways we could jump into the driver's seat and take control.
And why are we sharing our views with our listeners?
Well, because we want our listeners to realize that it may take time, but with some simple knowledge about health, they'll be able to make a few changes and dig deeper to take control of their well being and live a more vibrant life.
That's fantastic. But right now, before we get into all of that, we just need to do some housekeeping. Here we go. This is an opinion based podcast. This is not in any way offered as a diagnosis or treatment for any disease, illness, or infirmity for physical or mental condition or any other condition you may have. We are not doctors or practitioners of any kind. Persons needing medical care should obtain it from a medical practitioner. So, consult your practitioner before making any health decision. The opinions offered here in this podcast are ours alone. Again, we're not doctors, and the banter you're going to be listening to is our view and our view alone. Okay, that's done. We, of course, also want to have an open dialogue with our listeners. So stay tuned to the end of the episode, and we'll let you know all of the ways that we can connect. Welcome, everyone. Today, for episode 17, Mom and I are going to talk about vitamin D. I think our listeners may be hearing a lot more about this vitamin due to the pandemic. Studies have shown that having optimal levels of vitamin D help your body fight off illness and disease, as well as some studies have shown that it also helps ward off cancer. We're going to discuss the reasons it's important to have optimal levels of vitamin D and what those optimal levels may be for you. Of course, like any other topic, everyone has a different opinion of what those levels are. So, Mom, can you define vitamin D for us and let us know why it is beneficial for us?
Certainly, Delaney. Vitamin D is a group of fat soluble corticosteroids responsible for increasing intestinal absorption of calcium, magnesium, and phosphate, and many other biological effects. In humans, the most important compounds in this group are vitamin D3 and vitamin D2. The major natural source of vitamin D is synthesis through a chemical reaction that is dependent on sun exposure, specifically UVB radiation. That being said, D3 and D2 can be ingested from the diet and from supplements. Only a few foods, such as the flesh of fatty fish, naturally contain significant amounts of vitamin D. In the US, the other countries, cow's milk and plant derived milk substitutes are fortified with vitamin D, as are many breakfast cereals. Mushrooms, your favorite, exposed to ultraviolet light, contribute useful amounts of vitamin D to the diet. You really need to start eating mushrooms, I think.
I think I'll go with the flesh of the fatty fish first.
Okay, wow. Okay, so vitamin D is technically not a vitamin. Instead, I know. Instead, it can be considered a hormone. It circulates as a hormone in the blood, having a major role in regulating the concentration of calcium and phosphate and promoting the healthy growth of remodeling of bone. Vitamin D also has other effects, including some on cell growth, neuromuscular and immune functions, and reduction of inflammation. Vitamin D has a significant role in calcium homeostasis and metabolism. Its discovery was due to the effort to find the dietary substance lacking in children with rickets. And rickets is the softening and weakening of bones in children, usually because of an extreme and prolonged vitamin D deficiency. And vitamin D supplements are given to treat or to prevent rickets.
Is rickets still like a common malady, I guess, that can happen? Or is it like
Um,
polio where they just know what it
no,
is and you can fight it?
well, a lot of countries still have a problem with it, but you can see it like in children when you this is one indication is when their legs are bowing. If
Oh,
you've ever
okay.
seen little children with bowed legs, I mean,
Mhm.
it could be a lot of problems, but that is definitely one indication. And it depends on your socioeconomic things like that and what the children are eating and
Okay.
how their parents are taking care of them and
Yeah.
if they get enough vitamin D in their diet. And a lot of times pediatricians will, you can have vitamin D drops, things like that for children.
Okay. That's
So no,
interesting.
it's not. I mean, when they were trying to figure this out, obviously,
Right.
but now that they know what it is, it's preventable.
Okay. And then I guess adults, your bones have stopped growing, so you don't have the chance of getting rickets if you're vitamin D deficient. Because I've been vitamin D deficient, and like my bones and like
Well, no,
go
that's that we're
soft.
I think we're going to get into that later,
Oh,
but
okay.
no, you can they just don't call it rickets.
Okay.
It's like osteoporosis, osteopenia, things like that. And it is softening of the bones. So
Okay.
people, older people, when they break their hips, things like that, or
Hmm.
easily fracture, that would be an indication. They'll do a bone scan, but I think we're going to talk about that later.
Okay. Okay. So vitamin D has many functions in the body, like keeping our bones strong. And by helping us absorb calcium, vitamin D, along with the calcium, helps build those bones and keep them strong and healthy. So, like you said, weak bones lead to osteoporosis and the loss of bone density, which can lead to fractures.
Yeah, that's right. So it also works with the parathyroid glands, which are always working to balance the calcium in the blood by communicating with the kidneys, gut, and skeleton. The parathyroid is a group of four tiny glands that release a special type of hormone to keep the right balance of blood calcium. When there is sufficient calcium in the diet and sufficient active vitamin D, dietary calcium is absorbed and put to good use throughout the body. If calcium intake is insufficient or vitamin D is low, the parathyroid glands will borrow calcium from the skeleton in order to keep the blood calcium in normal range. So, again, what I was going to say is, and a lot of times doctors will diagnose or at least get an idea that there might be a problem with your parathyroid is when your calcium levels are really messed up in your blood. They'll start looking for parathyroid, cancer, things like that. And it's also, I don't think we talk about it much here, but K2 is important because they found out that vitamin K2, which you get from fermented foods,
Mm.
and a few other foods, but that could be dairy or sauerkraut, kimchi, things like that, is where you get the K2. That helps tell your body where to put the calcium back because your blood needs a perfect balance, and your body's constantly trying to balance the calcium and the acidity and the pH of your blood. So let's say your blood starts getting a little acidic and it takes the calcium and it puts it in blood, which calms it down because like when people get upset tummies, I mean we take ginger, but a lot of people
Hmm.
take Tums, which is calcium basically. So what happens is your body needs to put the calcium back into your bones, but without sufficient K2 it can put it in your arteries, and that's where some people get really blocked arteries or kidney stones, things like that. So it's good to find a vitamin D that also has K2 in it.
Okay. And isn't it also true that the result of a blood test indicates that you have that high calcium in your blood? The doctor usually repeats the test to confirm the results after you've fasted, not eating for a period of time. And though a number of conditions can raise the calcium, like you said before, like what did you say?
Yeah, there are different reasons your calcium can fluctuate.
Okay. So then they can make a diagnosis of the, whoa,
Yeah,
hyperparathyroidism
uh-huh.
if the blood tests show that you have elevated parathyroid hormone. Okay.
Yes. And so we had a patient come in once and they took her parathyroid out. Not good.
You
There,
take it out?
if you look, there are 4 little dots, top and bottom on either side of your thyroid. And she just kept coming back with these bizarre calcium levels in her blood. So the doctor said, well, we can't prove it, but we just think that you have cancer, parathyroid cancer. So we're just going to take it out. And so she was happy because she goes, they took it out and I didn't have any cancer. And I'm thinking, I don't think I'd be happy about that.
Like it's like, oh, well, like we think your arm has gangrene, so we're going to chop it off. Oh, no, it didn't have it. It's like,
That's
yeah,
exactly what
I
I'm
didn't have
thinking.
gangrene. It's like, yeah, but you have one arm now.
Perfect. Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
when you have, you just have to, again, just be your own health detective and really hold your doctors to it and make sure they really know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's like, I know you're a doctor and good at what you do, but don't use me as a guinea pig. You're like, oh, what's
Well,
wrong here? And like poke around.
well, I think we shouldn't assume. That's
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't assume. But that is, I mean, it may be changing because this was a few years ago. But when you do have calcium dysregulation in the blood, they do look right away to the parathyroid.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously there's other reasons. Or maybe they just weren't, I don't know, they didn't have cancer, but maybe they just needed, I don't
You
know.
did a break.
They just weren't working, or I don't know if that was the cause.
That's bad you can't like put them back. They should have also, can't you like some people they'll just take like a sample of something if they think there might be cancer or
A biopsy, yeah, but
yeah.
I think the whole biopsy would take up at least one of the little 4 glands.
At least take one and not all four. Like,
But it could be in the
anyways,
other ones. Who knows?
that's true.
We're not doctors,
We
Dalaney.
aren't. I know. I'm thinking from an engineering like problem solving standpoint. It's like, why would you just take them all out like that?
We're not going to criticize anyone here. That's
I know.
not what
It's
we're
a different
doing.
process.
It was just very sad for her, but who knows? Maybe that was the issue. It just wasn't cancer.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So there seems like a lot of bad health effects that are tied to vitamin D deficiency, right?
Yes, yes. Vitamin D deficiency means that you do not have enough vitamin D in your body. In this case, it can play a role in certain diseases, according to the Cleveland Clinic. These conditions can include this if you have low heart disease and high blood pressure, diabetes, infections and immune disorders, falls in older people, some types of cancer, such as colon, prostate, and breast cancer, and multiple sclerosis. Now, though that being said, especially with the pandemic going on, they are saying make sure your vitamin D levels are high. And I think we're going to, or higher, or I should say, between what the recommended daily allowance that you get that at least. And they are saying people with MS tend to have very low vitamin D, but they're finding that in a lot of diseases and depression. I mean, people.
Yeah, if it acts like a hormone, I can see how it would be it like affect your mental state with depression and stuff like that.
Yes, and I think our listeners really need to research that. And I think later we're going to also get into what you should be at, because on your blood test it says anywhere between 30 and 80, or 30, at least the minimal is 30. And if you look at functional doctors, what they say is the bare minimum would be 50, and then you want it between definitely 50 and 80, and 80 is probably prime.
Yeah, because senior year of college, I had to start taking a vitamin D supplement, like a prescribed one, because I'm pretty sure my test came back, it was like at 18. And you just said that the minimum was like 30. So my doctor was like, what? She's like, just take this all the time, every day. Blah.
That's horrible. 18
Yeah.
is horrible. I had a client once for health coaching, and she showed me her blood test and she had an 8, and that's the lowest I've seen. And that's really bad. And again, that's tied into depression, disease, inflammation,
Mm-hmm.
etc. I used to
Yep.
have really good vitamin D, but the last 3 years I've been inside an office all day and in front of a computer. So mine has gone down to 30. So I'm starting to really take supplements and things like that. And I take one, this is just me. It's 2,000 a day.
Yeah.
I use for vitamin D. And I get my vitamin K with it. But you'll talk to some functional medicine doctors and they say you should take 5,000 a day.
I think I was like, at that point, I was
Yes.
taking like a 6,000 pill like 2 or 3 times a day. Like she was just like, take it.
Also, usually when they prescribe them, it's a D2. And I read
Okay.
this one article once about it was very lengthy about how that just doesn't really stay in your system and convert
Mm-hmm.
as D3 would. But anything is better than nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, if people are taking it just to take it and it's not a prescription, like, do look up how much you can take and be safe. So,
Yes, yes. And try to find some functional doctors that talk about it because I think the RDA is 800 or 400 a
what does
day.
RDA mean?
The recommended dietary allowance,
Oh, okay.
that is way low for what other doctors, functional doctors say.
Hmm. Interesting.
Because I think with research, the RDA has been out for so long and they never really update them. And then the more research you have, then you find out what's maybe causing diseases or
Right.
can prevent
Or
them.
you're confirming it. I mean, you could just be
Exactly.
doing that research and be like, oh, yeah, our RDA is real good.
Exactly. They could.
Okay. Well, very interesting. And I just looked up on a site some of the causes of vitamin D deficiency, and it did mention that vitamin D deficiency can be caused by some specific medical conditions, such as cystic fibrosis, Crohn's disease, and celiac. Actually, know people with all of those. And those diseases do not allow your intestine to absorb enough vitamin D through supplements. Oh, if you do weight loss surgeries, they can reduce the size of your stomach and or bypass part of the small intestine to make it very difficult to consume sufficient quantities of certain nutrients, vitamins, and minerals. And these individuals need to be carefully monitored by their doctors and continue taking vitamin D and other supplements throughout their lives. On the flip side, obesity, also a body mass index greater than 30 is associated with lower vitamin D levels, and fat cells keep vitamin D isolated, so it's not released. And vitamin D deficiency is more likely in obese people. Obesity often makes it necessary to take larger doses of vitamin D supplements in order to reach and maintain normal D levels. And finally, kidney and liver disease. These diseases reduce the amount of an enzyme needed to change vitamin D to a form that is used in the body. So, lack of this enzyme leads to an inadequate level of active vitamin D in the body.
Yes. And here are some other factors that affect D absorption. The skin's ability to make vitamin D lessen with age. People who are homebound or are rarely outside, like me for the last 3 years, for example, people in nursing homes and other facilities are not able to use sun exposure as a source of vitamin D.
So, question with that, does sun exposure through a window count as sun exposure, or do you have to be outside?
Oh, no, it does through a window does not count. You need to be outside and you need to be outside and I hate to say this because I know people are gonna, but if you are not gonna be outside more than 20 minutes, you can go, well, I shouldn't say that. You should go without suntan lotion because the suntan
Oh, because it
lotion
blocks it.
can block. I'm not sure what it
Yeah,
blocks
because
is
it vote
UVB or UVA or
doesn't
both.
it both? I feel like normally
Some
some of them say
not.
both.
Yeah. So I don't want to make a statement like that and then someone, hey, say I have skin cancer and whatever. So if you don't feel comfortable not wearing sunscreen for 20 minutes, then take a supplement. Again, I'm not a doctor. I can't make you do anything.
Yeah.
You should go to get your blood test done and see what your vitamin D level is. And actually, I would think that it would be pretty routine on blood tests.
I'm also now I'm like really curious if how much of your skin needs to be exposed for that 20 minutes. Like, what is the area of skin to vitamin D uptake ratio?
Okay. Well, now I understand. And like, let's just say dark skin people are less able to make vitamin D than fair skinned because of the melatonin and
Okay.
it takes it harder. It makes it harder. But like, your arms and legs and, whatever. But 20 minutes, like if you walk 20 minutes in the sun, well, when it's sunny outside every day, you'd be fine. You would be totally fine.
Okay.
I say that, but again, we're going to get into if you live in Ohio, where your best friend's from, maybe not.
And that's I went to school near the border of Ohio, which
Yeah.
is probably why I had those issues in college. Because we didn't see the sun from August to May.
Yeah.
Literally.
So, well, or if you live in, well, that Scotland has the
Ugh.
highest, at least this was a few years ago when I read this MS rate. And they think it's because there's no sun. And, you've got Washington State here, but in
Mhm.
Scotland, they have one of the biggest institutes for research on MS.
Wow.
And so, but they are coming up with, hey, it's a lot of times they have very low levels of vitamin D. But again, we're finding even with the pandemic, people with higher levels of vitamin D seem to be doing better when you look at the research. I think I'm stumbling through this episode because I'm not a doctor. We're not doctors. We're not giving you medical advice, but we are trying to tell you to look into your levels of vitamin D and do what you feel is appropriate.
Yep. And going along with that, now we can talk about some medications that also cause vitamin D deficiency. Those can include laxatives, steroids, cholesterol lowering drugs, seizure control drugs, tuberculosis drugs, and weight loss drugs. I didn't know. Are tuberculosis drugs popular?
Yeah, you used to people used to get TB tests, and when you go sometimes for new jobs, I think, gosh, when I was teaching, teachers, things like that. Yeah, maybe it was just
Interesting.
being in the military, but I think I've had a TB test a few times,
Huh.
just to see if
Well, a
you
test,
react.
but did you?
Well,
You
no,
didn't take
because
a
I didn't have
drug.
I didn't have
Okay.
tuberculosis, so thank goodness I didn't have to take the drugs. But apparently, if I did, I'd have to up my vitamin D
Oh my
intake.
gosh. Yeah, the only thing I know about TB is like in old books where people have it and you're like, oh, well, they're going to die. And then you have like Apollo 13 or something where the guy tested positive for TB. And I think it was TB and like couldn't go on the mission and he was upset. And I think he turned out not having it. I think it was like a false positive. He was really upset.
Oh, I would be too.
Mm. That's the one where they were like got stuck. They went around the moon and then so they almost died. So he was probably like, well, I guess I'll stay on Earth this round.
That was a good thing. Okay, so let's tell our listeners what some of the signs and symptoms of vitamin D deficiency are. And as we discussed earlier, severe lack of vitamin D causes rickets in children and can show up as incorrect growth patterns, weakness in muscles, pain in the bones, and deformities in the joint. This is very rare. However, children who are deficient in vitamin D can also have muscle weakness or sore and painful muscles. Now, they did say about pain in the bones.
Mhm.
I do know when you were young and you were going to grow an inch overnight, you would complain that your legs hurt all the time.
Oh, that's different though,
Yes. So we're
right? Yeah.
making sure that's different because I had a client come in the other day saying, oh, their child had sore bones or something. And it seemed like they would also get growth spurts at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I guess you do have to check that, but I didn't have muscle weakness from that, yeah. So it was just ow. And always at night. It couldn't happen during the day. It was so annoying.
That's okay. It was cool because you'd wake up the next morning, you'd be an inch taller.
Yeah, seriously. That's why my husband too, he went through it too. So you can actually, my knee joint kept up with it, but his didn't. So a lot of people, their knees, it's kind of disjointed, they're too, because the joint doesn't keep up with the rapid growth. So it gets separated a little bit there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think some doctor person that we know was telling us about it. So we checked and his are kind of separated like that, but mine aren't. So
that's because you had me as a mother.
And he's not flexible, and all of my joints and cartilage are very fluid. So I think it was just fine. It just stretched out.
Okay, so lack of vitamin D is not quite as obvious in adults. Signs and symptoms might include fatigue, bone pain, muscle weakness, muscle aches, muscle cramps, mood changes like depression.
And that also sounds like me after volleyball and being tired. So it is tough. Like you said, it's tough to tell because it's just as you're aging, you feel all of these things too. Okay, but let's talk about ways that our listeners can get plenty of vitamin D. So go ahead.
Hey, you can get vitamin D in a variety of ways, and these can include being exposed to the sun about 15 to 20 minutes, 3 days per week is usually sufficient. And there is another doctor that will say you should just every day. But if you do get a tan, again, it's going to be harder for you to get that vitamin D for your body to do that through foods that you eat and through nutritional supplements.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty of what sunlight has to do with getting that vitamin D. So vitamin D is produced when your skin is exposed to the sun, or rather the ultraviolet B, the UVB radiation that the sun emits. The amount of vitamin D that your skin makes depends on such factors as the season. This factor depends a bit on where you live in areas such as Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, which is actually where my friend's grandmother lives. The UVB light does not reach the Earth for 6 months out of the year due to the ozone layer and the zenith of the sun. The sun reaches the observer's zenith when it's 90 degrees above the horizon, and this happens between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. That is very scientific there, Mom. And also I went to school 2 hours away from Cleveland, so just to put everything in perspective. The time of day is also a factor, and obviously the sun's rays are much more powerful between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. The amount of cloud cover and air pollution, where you live. Cities near the equator have higher ultraviolet UV light levels, which makes sense. And then it's the UVB light in the sunlight that causes your skin to make the vitamin D. And then the melanin content of your skin. Melatonin is a brown-black pigment in the eyes, hair, and skin. It causes your skin to tan. And the darker your skin, the more sun exposure that is needed in order to get sufficient vitamin D from the sun.
Okay, so how do we get enough vitamin D through our diets? Vitamin D doesn't occur naturally in many foods. That's why certain foods have added vitamin D. It may be difficult, especially for vegans or people who are lactose intolerant, to get enough vitamin D from their diets, which is why some people may choose to take supplements. So here is the vitamin D content of various foods. We have the food, and then we have the vitamin D content as international units, your IUs. And cod liver oil, 1 tablespoon puts 1,360 IUs, which is great because the RDA is 600 to 800. But of course, we've discussed that before as far as, what functional medicine doctors think is the real amount you should take. And I know people who will just take 1 tablespoon of cod liver oil a day.
Eat it.
Well, no, they have pills, but they also have the liquid, and they try to flavor it with lemon. I used to try to do that. It can gag you. You just have to get used to
It
it.
can gag you.
Well, just just hold your nose, I guess. Don't smell it, and then you'll be fine. Or just take the pill. I think I did convert to just taking the pills
Yeah,
because
but
the
then
liquid.
you like burp fish though after.
Yes, but that's okay because it's healthy. I know
Okay.
someone who's 98 and they have just taken cod liver oil all their life, a tablespoon. And
Huh.
back in the old days, if you talk to the older generation, I'd say 70, 75 and above, then most of them took cod liver oil. It was just something done in their childhoods. Mom would say, "Here, take this," and you just did.
Oh wow.
And it's amazing what they knew back then. Okay, so 3 ounces of swordfish or 566. I use salmon, 3 ounces, 447. Tuna in water is 154. Orange juice, because they know that they fortify that. 1 cup is 137, but again, just think of all the sugar you're getting. So, well, just make sure it's no sugar added.
Well,
Just
also,
orange
do
juice.
all orange juices get fortified with
I think
vitamin D?
so.
Because there's some that are just like, oh, like we just squish the orange into the cup and that's it. So,
I would definitely look. There may be
okay.
a law that does that, or if you go to your farmer's market, obviously they may not if they do their
Right.
own. But most of the commercial brands, they are fortified.
Okay. So
And
check.
yeah, and milk is actually fortified. So you get 115 IUs. And yogurt is fortified with 20% of the daily value of D, which is 6 ounces, which is only 80 IUs.
Okay.
So let's see, we have a few more here so people can get ideas. Sardines, 2 sardines is 46, but I think that's probably from the bones that you eat in them.
Ugh. And it's sardines, so just eat a swordfish anyways. Why are you eating a sardine?
Well, sardines are wonderful. If you don't like the olive oil, I think I used to get them in water, and you can get them all
That's
sorts of ways
worse.
flavored. Well, it's just like your oysters, you flavor them with
No, because
whatever you
my
just.
oysters taste good. Sardines are literally just salt.
You not necessarily. You can get different flavored ones. They're hot,
Oh,
like picante, things like that.
that's weird. Okay.
Actually, sardines are wonderful. And they're a small fish, so if you're worried about heavy metals, that kind of takes care of that. One egg yolk has 41, beef liver 42. If you want an all-around great multivitamin, eat chicken or beef liver because
Shout out to Fallon, who's like, liver is the greatest. Well, she tried it, and I think she said she's going to get used to it. I don't think it was super rave reviews, but
yes, well, I am so
but
happy
she
she
enjoyed
tried
it.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's like an easy multivitamin to take, and it's easy to cook. You eat it. Chicken livers are smaller. I just boil mine. A lot of people fry them, and that or beef liver. And I think it's chicken liver. You get vitamin C actually,
Interesting.
and I think beef liver you get a lot of. You have your copper. So you're getting lots of minerals and vitamins just from eating the organs of animals. But if you don't like that, you can always just buy it in a capsule form.
Yep.
Okay, so and also Swiss cheese, 1 ounce has 6 IUs. But again, if we're looking for at least 800 to a few thousand, you'd have to eat a lot or hang out in the sun or
Because that'd be a
take a
lot of
supplement.
cheese. Well,
Yeah. Well, I do know people who eat that much cheese. But yeah, so it's important to check product labels as the amount of added vitamin D varies when it is artificially added to products such as orange juice, yogurt, and margarine. But who would eat margarine?
whoa, you said that with your mom there in the house with you? She likes margarine.
No, she doesn't.
Really?
No, she
I
she does
definitely ate.
butter.
I can't believe it's not butter only at their house.
That must have been years ago. Because
Okay.
I know as of 2015, when I went and cleaned out everything, I know she has
Okay.
not had margarine or anything like that since.
Okay. That is, I'm pretty sure it was at their house the first time I ever tried that.
Really, I've never seen. Okay, I just always thought that they cooked with butter. They did
Well,
use different
grandfather
oils.
might have.
I know she used what is it? It's not mayonnaise. It was Miracle
Oh,
Whip
the
was her
Miracle
thing.
Whip. Yep. Mhm.
Ugh.
Miracle Whip and Vidalia onions.
Yes.
Ugh. Okay. So I think we've been talking about this throughout the whole episode, but how much vitamin do you need? I'm going to put you in a corner and you have to answer.
Okay. So again, this is so controversial, and functional medicine doctors will say we need a whole lot more than the RDA. The chart from the Cleveland Clinic shows the often cited recommendations from the Health and Medicine Division of the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. It is important to know that these are general recommendations. If your doctor is checking your blood levels, he or she might recommend higher or lower doses based on your individual needs. If you have osteoporosis, your doctor might suggest a blood test of your vitamin D levels. The amount of vitamin D supplement can be customized for each person based on the results. For many older patients, a vitamin D supplement containing anywhere from 80 to 2,000 IUs daily, which can be obtained without a prescription, can be both safe and beneficial.
The 80
So
or 800?
the 800 to
Okay.
2,000, they can be safe. Again, it goes from infants, which they say 1,000 daily, to 1 to 3 year olds. And this is, what was it, from the Cleveland Clinic, took this off.
Okay.
So 1,500, then it has children 48-year-olds 3,000. We get to people 9 to 70 years old 4,000. The recommended is always like 4 to 800, but the upper intake level they are now saying 4,000. So people over 70 years old, 800 to 4,000, and females 14 to 15 years old or pregnant 600 to 4,000. So they're being much more liberal.
Okay. So it is just what works for you.
Well, I think everybody should get next time they go to the doctor a vitamin D test. Or if you're always inflamed or sick or anything like that, you may want to up your vitamin D. But check with your doctor first.
Okay, so Mom, let's wrap up telling our listeners a few more things they may not know about the importance of having optimal levels of vitamin D.
That sounds good. But first, let me address what you mentioned at the beginning of the episode about cancer and vitamin D. This comes off Dr. Jocker's website. He mentions that roughly 10,000 cancer cells are generated by the body every single day. One of the most common factors contributing to the ability for these cancer stem cells to proliferate and invade new tissue is D3 deficiency. There are a variety of influences that have resulted in vitamin D being one of the most common nutrient deficiencies in our society today, which has only fueled the growth of cancer as the nemesis of our time. Our society relies heavily upon pharmaceutical drugs, many of which can devastate the ability for vitamin D to successfully convert into its bioavailable form. This concern, added to limited exercise, decreased time spent outdoors, high sugar consumption, poor nutrition, lacking trace minerals and amino acids, and chronic stress produces a favorable environment for cancer stem cells to thrive. So according to the cancer.gov website, suggests a possible association between vitamin D and cancer risk. In studies of cancer cells and of tumors in mice, vitamin D has been found to have several activities that might slow or prevent the development of cancer, including promoting cellular differentiation, decreasing cancer cell growth, stimulating cell death, which is apoptosis. I just love that word.
It
And
sounds like it's a Pop Tart for your
yeah.
body.
And reducing tumor blood vessel formation, which is angiogenesis.
Okay, so what is the evidence that vitamin D can help reduce the risk of cancer in people?
Okay, a number of epidemiological studies have investigated whether people with higher vitamin D intakes or higher blood levels of vitamin D have lower risks of specific cancers. The cancers for which the most human data are available are colorectal, breast, prostate, and pancreatic cancer. Numerous epidemiological studies have shown that higher intake or blood levels of vitamin D are associated with a reduced risk of colorectal cancer.
Okay. And according to Mark Sisson in his book, The Primal Blueprint, getting plenty of sunlight and hence vitamin D is nowhere near a given. What with our
Pension.
pendant for spending much of our time in confined spaces such as cars, offices, and homes. Sunlight also has a powerful mood elevating effect, which can enhance productivity at work and interpersonal relations. Your cells become truly energized on a biochemical level when you obtain regular doses of sunlight, fresh air, and open space. Is he British? That was a very British excerpt.
No, you should look his stuff up. I think we'll have a link. He has just been doing this for a long time. He had first put the Primal Blueprint out, and he had his younger picture on. It's been there for so many years. He updated the photo, and yeah, he's very healthy. He does really fun things
Okay.
to try to, yeah, it's a fun book. In Susie Cohen's book, Thyroid Healthy, she states that your thyroid gland produces a natural hormone called thyroxine or T4. T4 is also sold as a popular prescription drug, Synthroid, or its genetic levothyroxine, especially people who, well, they can take it if they have a thyroid, but people who don't have a thyroid have to be on thyroid medicine for the rest of their lives. So to become activated, T4 must morph into T3, and this in turn must find its way into the cells to do its work. Many things can go wrong with this process. Often it is a deficiency in B vitamins, vitamin D, or minerals, which causes sluggish conversion of T4 to T3. Whatever the reason for not having enough T4 to T3 conversion means you are clinically hypothyroid, or what the author calls thyroid sick. So this is interesting because I think we could reverse a lot, and that's actually an excellent book. A lot of people could reverse a lot of issues with their thyroid, which also leads into body aches and, weight gain or whatever they may be having could be the thyroid. So you make sure you have efficient levels of your macro and micronutrients, minerals, and your vitamins and your vitamin B and D. It's amazing how you can feel much better and change things, because your body runs on nutrition, not calories. So if you sit there and you count calories all day and you have cake, well, the nutrition in there, unless it is fortified with maybe vitamin D, I don't know, but it's not going to give you the nutrition you need to have your body run efficiently.
That makes sense. But finally, in Dr. Gundry's book, The Plant Paradox, which we have mentioned on the show before, and it is the book that mom gave a lot of relatives one year for Christmas. And she wrote this part, but I do honestly think that no one but her has read it so far. But it states that most Americans have very low levels of vitamin D3, and that 100% of his autoimmune patients were deficient in vitamin D. He also states that in the last 17 years, he has yet to see a case of vitamin D toxicity. Which is interesting. I don't have. Has anyone ever
No,
OD'd on vitamin D?
that I don't know. As far as I know, no, and I don't
Okay.
think it's in any of the literature. There are some functional medicine doctors that keep their vitamin D levels 100 to 110. I think 80 is probably a good spot, but no, they haven't. Vitamin D does so much in your body.
Well, thanks everyone for listening. And again, we want to hear from you guys. We always want to hear from you guys. Please, please, please reach out to us. And here are just a few ways that you can do that. You can reach out via Instagram and Facebook. Find us at Salty About Health, even Snapchat at Salty Health. You can email us at saltyabouthealth@gmail.com. Or if you just want to find all that in one place, check out our website, saltyabouthealth.com. We've got all the ways for you to listen and connect there. And finally, if you like what you hear today, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. We really appreciate it. So, Mom, if they want to hear from you on social media, where can they find you?
Okay, I am a certified health coach and I do coach one-on-one. So if you're interested, you can contact me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com. I also do research for people who are interested in finding alternative approaches to do in conjunction with the health issue or illness their doctor is treating them for. So again, just reach out to me at mary@feedyourselfhealthy.com or follow me on Twitter at feedyourselfhealthy, which is spelled FEEDURSELFHLTHY. That's where they can find me.
Cool. Okay. And if you guys want to find me, I'm not a health coach, but I'm on Instagram hanging out there at Dalaney.a. Find out how to spell my name in the show notes and everything. And of course, I'll be the one mainly keeping an eye on the social media. So always happy to chat with you guys via the Salty Network. Also, just want to shout out our intro and outro music. It is by Yule, and you can find her at www.yulearts.com. That's EULARTS. You can also find her on Instagram at Yule_arts or Spotify and YouTube. Check her out. Her piano music and everything else is amazing. And until next time, stay salty.
Stay salty.